society to create a situation where they are so scared that taking your life is the best option. Like, seriously, like, we are failing.
Dr Jenine Beekhuyzen is a technologist, researcher, and the founder of the Tech Girls movement, a program that turned 15,000 young women into app builders. She fought Marvel and DC to trademark tech girls are superheroes, and now uses Lego and play-based methods to help organisations rethink cybersecurity culture. This is her story.
Their literal superpower is they will find weaknesses in the system and exploit them, and they make you feel bad. Shame drives things underground. We don't know then how to deal with it. It creates shadows and workarounds, and it becomes quite dangerous.
You need to be vulnerable in order to avoid being a vulnerability.
Dads, grab your sons, grab a PC. And it literally changed the culture because it was such an incredible marketing campaign. They're heroes already. I just help them shine.
Jenine Beekhuyzen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bora. Thank you, Emily. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm here together with my co-host, Emily. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Jenine, you mentioned that you grew up as a daughter of two factory workers, right? And I guess in a generation which I'm very familiar with, grew up without the Google and the internet, and very different street smart era, I should say. How do you think the foundation shaped you in understanding the digital divide from an early age?
Oh, what a great question to start with, Bora. I love it. And you're right. I grew up in, social housing commission. My father actually passed away when I was 5. My mother worked in the bra factory. It was I was never expected to go to university. No one I knew had been to university, none of my family. I had one cousin who didn't finish. But yeah, it was a very rare thing. And I guess growing up, I was very fortunate. I had quite a bit of access to technology, even though we didn't have a lot of money. And my mother was a bit of an early adopter. So we had, the little games consoles. There were like endless of those when I was growing up. We had, the Atari. So we had the first VCR where, you had a remote control that was literally a cord, and I could go into the other room and press start and stop. And I was so excited about that when I was like 8 years old. So I grew up with, an Amstrad computer, like the green screen with the keyboard and the tape recorder attached, and it would make these funny noises as it loaded. And so, yeah, I was fortunate to have a little bit of access to technology, but I think that made me very aware of how awesome it was and what the opportunities from that were. And I even remember at school, I think it was something like year 6 before I had access to a computer. And it was like, wow, I can do stuff that I couldn't do before, which was coming from somewhere where you didn't have a lot of opportunity. It felt like something that would give me opportunities. And really why I studied IT or information technology at university was because I thought I'll never get bored. There'll always be something to learn. And that always excited me. So I was always a bit of a tinkerer. I always loved to play and pull things apart and put them back together, which made me a bit of an anomaly growing up. But yeah, it served me quite well in later life.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, just to reference it, I was the remote control for my parents. So, I was that wireless, with the eye signal, go change the channel. So yes, I too was excited when the cable came and then the wireless infrared came. And a bit of a bad joke, my poor uncle, when I had a universal remote control, he would sit to watch his TV shows at a certain time and I would stop the video, fast forward, randomly eject, and it would take a while before he discovers what was going on. It was a lot of fun. So I love that era. I agree.
That's pretty cheeky.
Yeah. But I guess coming into this current time, let's talk about the stupid user myth, if you want to call it that. Or in this podcast, we like to use the word dumb, right? Ems, you've talked extensively about how traditional tech environments alienate people who think differently, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I, as we all know, love to tell people that I don't know how computers work because I think that tech, for starters, is so alienating, and you can use that to your advantage. But at the same time, there's so many incredible women out there that know how computers work. And Jenine, I have loved reading about all of the wonderful things that you've done with young women and teaching them how to code and treating them as literal superheroes as they deserve to be. And I want to know, how do you translate that or transfer the superhero method to adults?
Oh, what a great question. And I think back a little way, I'm not actually really into superheroes myself, which is quite funny considering I ran a campaign and actually owned the trademark and fought for that against Marvel and DC to own it and whatever for 4 years. tech girls are superheroes. But for me, I had this moment where I was I've always been interested in helping women, particularly in technology. That's since I was one of a few women in my own IT degree. There was like a half a dozen of us, a handful of us in a room full of, dare I say, smelly young men. Young men when I was sort of 18 years old, and I was a bit older than that. And yeah, so it was like, well, what's going on here? We're missing, there's something obviously missing in this room, and it's women. And where are the voices that we need to hear? And so the idea of a superhero is that we all have a superpower inside of us. And what is that thing? What's that strength that we pull out when we need to get us through those tough times? And to recognize that, to own it, to celebrate. And I thought, well, if we could get young girls thinking about what their superpowers are with technology, they might actually think it's for them. Cultural history tells us that tech is a guy's domain, or the hacker movies of the 80s, and there's a whole bunch of culture around that. Even in 1984, actually 1984 was when the women started to drop out of tech. So you may know the first programmer in the world computer program was a woman, Ada Lovelace. We had Grace Hopper in the 50s. We had Hedy Lamarr, screen goddess in the 1920s, who created spread spectrum and all the design for all the intelligence systems around the world, defense systems around the world. But then we lost them. We lost these women. And it was a really coordinated campaign by Radio Shack in the US in 1984 when PCs were around. It was like, dads, grab your sons, grab a PC. And it literally changed the culture because it was such an incredible marketing campaign. It actually worked. And so what happened was, yes, dads were buying PCs. They were putting them in the boys' bedrooms. So girls didn't get access to them. So it was literally just an access issue, if nothing else. And so women just, there's charts, there's all sorts of evidence online that they literally just dropped off at that point. And so for me, the idea of women in tech particularly has always been a cultural problem, one that we as a society have created, therefore we as a society can fix it. So it's a social construction of a problem. So yes, we can fix this. So that's always driven me to say, how do we get more women in the room? And I, went into this degree not knowing I was going to be one of a handful of women. I was very fortunate. I had a number of female lecturers who were very inspiring and were, funnily enough, doing research on women in tech back in 8. This was 3 decades ago. They were very much pioneers in the space. And I guess for them, they were seeing women come across the stage. So the graduates come across the stage and there were just a few women. There was really not a lot of diversity in who was coming across the stage. For me, this sparked something in me going, okay, well, if I'm here, there must be other women like me out there. How do we get them in this room and what's stopping them? So we started doing some research. We started to try to understand the problem. There were really 2 main reasons why women weren't taking up tech. We say STEM more broadly now. It was tech in my background. And it was a lack of visible female role models and a lack of understanding of what technologists do. So we know what a doctor does, we know what a lawyer does, we know what a teacher does. What does a technologist do? Even to this day, I don't really know what a technologist do because we do so many different things and we put all these acronyms in there and we throw these words around that no one knows so that we sound important, but it really doesn't help. Having an acronym, IT in itself, STEM, adds another level of barrier that really just confuses a lot of people, and particularly parents of young people. And we're never going to get a workforce that's capable of building our digital futures and getting young people involved if parents don't understand what it's about and they don't see the value. Because as much as young people want to do it, the parents are like, no, I'm not going to do this. So it's not going to happen. So for me, it was like, how do we get young people inspired to want to come and be part of this amazing space that we're in to create our futures? But then how do we also educate parents and teachers along the way to get them on board so that they're all in and can provide the support networks needed for young people to really succeed in this space? So it was around, okay, well, how do we address those 2 things? Let's get some role models and let's understand what technology people do. So Tech Girls Movement was born, and it was really around providing role models for schoolgirls. So we had, I think, over 10 years, I think we had more than 2,000 mentors who gave up endless amounts of time, hundreds of hours of their time. So if we add all of that up in terms of dollars, it was quite phenomenal, the impact. We had 15,000 girls through the program hands-on who literally built an app over 12 weeks. And what really worked, and I think we've talked a little bit about empathy, or it's going to come up, and it was really about girls finding a problem in their community that they cared about and then trying to solve that problem. And often in school, we're given a problem to solve. And so what made this really different was we gave them the agency to find the problem. So what matters to you? what do you care about? And there's no problem, big or small, no problem too small to be irrelevant. And some were really big on hunger and homelessness, really important issues. Others were things around beauty or self-care or something more personal. So they really did range in topics. And so what worked was just getting young people excited about technology, about building something and having the ability. And I love when you see young people and we would have an emulator, they would emulate their app and they would be like, oh my goodness, it actually works. Look at this. And there was nothing better than seeing the excitement on their face to realize that they could do it too. And to give them that experiential, hands-on way of doing things that just brings a spark to their eye. And nothing gives me more joy than seeing young people get excited about technology and the possibilities that it creates for them.
I see two things from that. One is, don't tell me no, because I will do it regardless. And I will prove you wrong in every way, shape, or form. And the other part being like, see, I made that thing. Like, look and, bring the two together. And it's like, cool, I challenge that. Like, I fixed that problem. What's the next one? Let me do the next thing. How else can I use this? And I think like women, we talk about, we have all the skills and the ability to do all these different things. And there was a great example of a woman in the APS. She was an EL1, or she won an EL1 position just by talking about her experience looking after toddlers. And you're like, yeah, that's perfect. Like problem solving and all of this and stuff. And women are so good at complex problem solving. It's a fact. Like you were juggling 15 things at once, right? And how no shame to the men out there, boy, you're fine. I know what your wife does too. Like she's amazing in her own right as well. And I think it's just so cool how we do all these kinds of things. And the only thing that is kind of stopping us is other people's perception, not even a correct perception or idea of what we're capable of. Because I've seen some pretty incredible women do some pretty incredible stuff. I've seen the stuff that you've even done, Jenine, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And hats off. That's all I can say.
Oh, thank you. And you too, Em. And it's like, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think it really, really is true. Role models matter so much. Mentoring is important, but mentoring and role models. So definitely the hands-on experiential, transfer, but also role models, those people who are not necessarily unattainable, but there's something to aspire to. And we all have them. Hetty, Grace, Peter are all my role models who, if they can do it, well, I'm going to give it a good go as well.
Absolutely. And they literally, like, Hetty, and you think about, like, we would not be here having this conversation if that didn't happen. And a bunch of men doubted her, but look at what she still achieved.
Before you can be smart, you can do lots of different things, and it's not a dichotomy. You can be lots of things together. So let's break those stereotypes. Smash it. You don't have to be in a hoodie and sneakers, but you can be if you want. And everything in between, like, absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the idea of the superhero was, wear a cape, wear something or don something, whether it's a necklace or a pair of shoes or something that makes you feel good about yourself, that you can then walk into the room and go, yeah, I've got this. And, I love Amy Cuddy's power pose. You do power pose before you walk into the room, hands on hips, go, I've got this. And it just changes everything.
It's amazing what you said about the marketing earlier. That was definitely a big takeaway, the cultural belief in making a whole generation of people believe something that's completely not true. And I guess when you're younger and your children, you kind of take on board what you see. And that generation was very TV. I know I was one of them. Was very TV oriented because that's where we watched all our movies and everything. And there was only a few channels available.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree. I've said this many times to a lot of people in the industry. I've coached both boys and girls in football or soccer. I like to call it football because that's,
It really is.
It's a sport that uses the foot more than anything else. So let's not get into that argument for another day. But
there's a whole other podcast.
When you're coaching, in my case, what I discovered very quickly, and it was the best experience of my life, was that when you're coaching girls, you're not coaching a team of girls. You're coaching 11, 12, whatever it may be, 15 individuals who think differently. And yes, I know how quick you got to learn. I know how I can be a bit harder on some. I have to be a bit softer on some. You have to give a bit more love to some. Don't want that. And what that teaches you as a coach is really awesome understanding of how they actually think. And when you make those girls work together as a unit, amazing.
Magic.
Like the results are amazing. And I mean, I must admit, I will freely admit, playing out on the pitch when there's issues happening, I'd much rather be with the boys because boys are just competitive, aggressive. Girls say things, and even I get scared, and I'm a fully grown man on the sidelines, not even involved in the game.
Hey, I played girls soccer and I would sooner play a team full of men than a team full of women because we were violent. Like it was full on contact.
I think you're absolutely right there around getting a group of young women, older women, women in general, girls, women together, finding their own superpower. And that's what made Tech Girls work so well was the team of girls would form a team of up to 5. And we would actively encourage them all to be different so that everyone had a role in the team. And often they would find that in technology, they thought, well, if I'm not a coder, then I don't really have a place. But we're like, no, absolutely we do. We need project managers, we need designers, we need marketers, we need everyone to have space, and you can come to the team and offer something. And that bit of magic there where they all got together and used their strengths to create something was, yeah.
I love it. I like where we're going with this. So I want to kind of keep in the play space, let's call it, because that's what we've been talking about. You obviously have a love of unconventional problem solving, and you are a facilitator of Lego Serious Play, which is really cool, which is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 3D modeling to create new things instead of stuff.
I have the Lego here. So absolutely.
Now, Bora, you have also talked a lot about what happens when companies actually get breached.
Yeah, definitely. The panic kicks in. People lose their minds. They start blaming. No one wants to be the responsible person who clicked something they shouldn't have clicked, or the ego kicks in, whatever you want to call it. But I guess what I want to know, Jenine, from your perspective is how does playing with blocks, if you like, keep it simple for adults, help leaders be more open instead of causing, panic and havoc?
Yeah, it's a really great question there. Thanks, Bora, for taking that up. And I think what happens in security particularly is there's a very shame-based culture that happens. And it's like, you've clicked on something, you've done something wrong, you did the training, you should know better. And that's just really unproductive, I think, because how often do any of us, we've probably all clicked on something at some point and gone, oh gosh, I wish I didn't. And this is what the cyber criminals are great at. Their literal superpower is they will find weaknesses in the system and exploit them, and they make you feel bad. They find those cultural nuances to tap to get into that gap, to go, actually, there's a gap here. We're going to make you feel as bad as possible for doing what you did. And then when that comes from executive leadership and others, it's super unhelpful. So what I love about Lego Serious Play, and again, I'm not really a Lego person. I've not grown up with Lego. I've not really played with it a lot. And this is why I love these concepts of let's bring them in when they help us to do what we need to do. And through the training of Lego Serious Play, I found, my goodness, just how quickly we got into a really deep conversation. And I'm undiagnosed ADHD. Playing with my hands is always a good thing. Doing something with my hands, I really enjoy. But we had people around the table who didn't know each other. And we knew so much about each other from like lunchtime on the first day because we just deep dive right in. And I think what the serious play, like it seems like, oh, it's just blocks, it's Lego, it's not important, it's something I've done my whole life. But what it does is it provides a simulated environment. So it's not so much about gamification per se, but it's designing an experimental environment where failure is safe. It's real, but scaffolded. And I'm trained in delivering what's called a Super Connect method, which is trauma-informed facilitation, which if we have these conversations in this space, stuff comes up as well. And because it's an environment where people involved can make decisions about under uncertainty and under time pressures, and we can actually embed lived experiences as part of that. And what I love most about it is it gives everyone at the table a voice. Often we get distracted by the loud voices. And so and we don't have to contribute, but we're encouraged to. but it's a way of giving everyone a safe space to share, to be equal. So whether it's leadership or levels of leadership with our operational staff working together. And often what happens with our cybersecurity training, it's really siloed often. So it's like everyone almost gets the same training, which doesn't work. Or if the executive leaders get the nice toys to play with and learn over here, and it doesn't get filtered through the organization. So it's that cross-functional way of exploring a problem, exploring it as a real-time issue. So we can put a tool on, we can say, we've just literally got this email, someone's clicked on it, what do we do now? These are the options, and actually play it through as a real-time scenario. So it really creates those shared mental models about what's happening, what could happen, and we can, without all the cost involved, but we can test out real-life scenarios to see what ifs. And I think what if scenarios are so helpful for us to explore, not when the what if happens, let's do it before the what if happens.
I love that. I once did a whole, I don't do D&D. I wish I did, but I'm just not creative enough, oddly. But I created a whole D&D cyber tabletop campaign place I worked at, because like you said, it's about creating that safe environment and separating ourselves, like our characters when they do naughty things, from ourselves, so much easier to fail, right? That's one of the beauties of D&D. You roll a 2 and you're like, oh, I'm out, right? You're incapacitated, but that's not you that's failed, right? It's this character that you've created that's failed.
100%. And it sort of shifts that responsibility like away from you. So yeah, you can fail in a safe environment and learn from that and go, okay, well, next time I won't do that. And when it really happens, then I tested it out and I've got the bad stuff out of the way maybe, or at least understand the consequences of my actions so that when the situation arises, I'm far more prepared and know, and just knowing some steps forward, like rather than go, what do? I don't want to tell anyone, where do I go? It's like, well, these are the steps that we could potentially follow that will get, it's not great, of course, but we'll find a resolution and we have to find an outcome.
I love it. I also love Lego, so.
Definitely,
So do I.
have some serious conversations, and I just think it's a powerful tool to get people talking and to get us on a different level, like really quickly, to talk about stuff that really matters.
On that topic again, I just want to reiterate that as someone who's played with it with both my children, I use them as an excuse to buy Lego Technics, of course, as you
Of
do.
course.
It's for my child. How's he going to put that? It says 17 plus. No, don't worry about it. That's just a guideline.
And
Listen
it's
to
like
that.
sold to adults, so yeah.
It's that when you're hands-on and you build something, it sticks because three or 4 pages down the line, something's not working, and you can more easily understand the issue because you put it together. So therefore, you kind of have that, oh, hold on, that piece on that picture isn't there. You go back, oh, crap. But without realizing, you've just disassembled those 2 bits that you put together without even thinking, because you put them together and you're not sitting there scratching your head wondering what's going to happen. And because you're practicing it, as you suggested, and what you do is amazing in that sense, that means hopefully that practice, when you're in that real life scenario, you're not going to panic. And that's such an amazing way to learn. I absolutely love that.
Completely agree. And I think we think of games and playing as not important, but absolutely. Serious play, I think, is very underrated. There's a lot of academic literature behind it in terms of how it works, and it is very sound. And I just think to bring people together, and, we're kind of sick of Post-it notes. We're sick of the same way of doing things. So for me, it's just a whole new way of going, let's sit down, let's put some stuff on the table and just see what works. And it's very short and sharp. Like we build things in like 90 seconds and, you don't get more than 5 minutes to build something. And there's something about that immediacy as well that, you're in a situation, you have to react. What are you going to do? That's very...
Quit yapping. Just start doing. Janine, you are pioneering frameworks on cultural safety in STEM, building on Brené Brown's concepts of vulnerability and shame. But the cybersecurity industry is literally built on a zero trust mentality, not just for networks, but also for people. And boy, we burnout. It sucks. We see it every single day. The entire industry is burnt out and exhausted.
I agree. Yeah, it's I guess it comes back to what we spoke about before in cyber. Admitting you've made a mistake, like clicking on the bad link, which these days you don't even have to, because your phone downloads an image and you're done. That's it, right? So you didn't even cause that, but yeah, you don't want to be that person, because usually, especially in a corporate environment, I guess, and Jenny, I'm sure you can vouch for this, there's what they call corporate shame. Building a culture around paranoia and punishment actually makes companies less secure. So what does true cultural safety look like in our industry?
Yeah, what an excellent question, Bora. And thanks, Em, for the contribution there. And absolutely, we have this culture of paranoia, right? We have surveillance without trust. We're monitoring what people are doing. We have this sort of shame-based training as well. It's sort of the punitive consequences for what we do. And if you click this, then this will happen to you, so on. And this zero tolerance sort of orthodoxy, as you talk about. And even just the reporting of incidents is, the shame of, I don't want to report it because I'm going to be the person. And then what the consequences of that. And that's just super, super unhelpful. And ticker box training and so on. And so all of that really makes things challenging. And I love that you bring Brené in, because she's my hero. I talk about role models. She's absolutely my hero. And she talks about guilt and shame. And guilt is, I did something bad, versus shame, I am bad. And I think those things, to separate them, are actually really important. So yes, I did something bad doesn't mean I am bad. And creating a culture around that, like we all do bad things sometimes. We all make mistakes. And as you say, particularly in the world we're in, it's not even something that we do. It's just by being somewhere or having an account or having a connection or something that makes things happen. Yeah, absolutely. This happens. And like society and more broadly, is when we feel safe is when we're the best, right? When we feel safe, we can share. We're not worried about getting something wrong. That's when we actually perform the best that we are. This shame drives things underground. We don't know then how to deal with it. It creates shadows and workarounds, and it becomes quite dangerous, I think, because the unknown, and we can't deal with it if we don't know about it. And that's what tends to happen with that sort of surveillance culture and that shame culture. So what I really love about Brené, she gives us the tools to help to sort of reframe that and say, well, how can we do this in a way that really is blameless? I guess things happen, it's blameless, it's just things that happen and there's a process for it. Separating the accountability from shame. And so, yes, I may have been accountable, but that doesn't mean everything I've done before is bad. So understanding vulnerability, we're all vulnerable. And we talk a lot, I'm sure you talk a lot about vulnerability and security, but vulnerability in everyday life. And we need to be a little bit vulnerable, but then that can be exploited. So how can we find ways of celebrating the near misses, for instance, going, yes, this week our team, we almost offer 10 cyber attacks or 1,000 cyber attacks or what it might be, but we didn't. And how cool is that? Because we know how much is underreported, like tenfold, 1,000 probably, to be honest. It's so underreported. So how can we find ways, and not all sort of security incidents are equal as well. Some are minor, some are bigger, and just naming them, shaming them, putting them on the page saying, this is actually what all of us are facing. Certain teams in the organization, financial, might have different issues to our tech teams, but just understanding and moving away from a shame system to it's an information problem. And if we don't know the problem, we don't know how to fix it. We can't even begin to fix it. So cultural safety isn't about being soft, or it's not about giving people a free ride, but it's basically creating an infrastructure and that organizational security for everyone to feel like they can talk about what's really going on.
It's almost like you need to be vulnerable in order to avoid being a vulnerability. Smart. I was thinking
Right.
about AXFA. I mean, when you go and get a government security clearance, like I was very honest in mine, and I think I actually scared the person interviewing me because they were like, oh, you put on here that you smoked a lot of pot in high school. I was like, yeah, I was a teenager. What else was I supposed to do? And they said, well, what if your boss found out? I was like, you're on speaker in the office. It's open plan. And she went, and my boss is like, yep, we talk about it all the time. I was like, we actually don't. Yes, we do. And like, but that was, one of the things is, for AXFA, they want to know that you're going to be honest, for example, because if you aren't honest and you don't feel safe within yourself, don't feel shameful, I guess, then you're less likely to be a victim of coercion or exploitation or, do naughty things.
100%. And that's what the scammers are looking for, right? They're looking for that vulnerability of, take a nude, send it to me, and young people maybe do it without noticing. older people as well, but there's a,
Mhm.
I guess, discussion at the moment
Mhm.
about young people, particularly young men, responding to these. And it's just this moment of shame, and they don't know who to talk to. They're taking their own lives just because in that split second, they are so scared. And what are we doing as a society to create a situation where they are so scared that taking your life is the best option? Like, seriously, like, we are failing there. We are failing. And so having honest conversations, and we all mess up. We all make mistakes. And we try to live in this world where it's like, oh, I don't make those mistakes. No, that's not me. But yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Let's own it and let's talk about it. And it's the only way we're going to be able to deal with the challenges we have, those vulnerabilities.
Yeah,
Also, they might learn
definitely.
something about tech too if we let them fail.
It's again going back to the cultural conversation, right? Like, it's a scenario where when from a young age or not, these days we had, when I say we had street smart, right? And today you got to be cyber smart, I think is the simple way to put it. And if it becomes a cultural thing, then it becomes adapted from everyone at all levels. And what I've found, the more people understand protecting themselves or their home, then translates into protecting my workplace. Going home and telling your kids you played with Lego does not work well for anyone,
Okay.
right?
Telling
But bringing that Lego home, playing and learning, mucking up, and embedding that culture of that's okay. That's like the whole. I mean, I've always said it, as much as it burns me when it falls and breaks into bits and pieces with a twitching eye. It's okay. That's why we've got Lego, because we can rebuild it. I mean, we can rebuild it, child. What? But that's
So,
then translated as if a kid grows up with that, oh, that's okay. It broke. There was a mistake made, or I accidentally knocked it, or I missed a part. I can put it back together. Unlike IKEA, which ends up being broken, and the second one gets bought in for $30. But that's another story for another day. On that note, I guess the threat of the digital divide seems to be a big thing, and we always hear about the diversity as a moral or ethical imperative. But from a, I guess, purely defensive standpoint, a room full of people who think exactly the same way creates a massive, predictable blind spot.
Yeah, and Jenny, we've talked about this as well, about diversity and ADHD and how it makes us think and how special we think it is among ourselves. But tell me more like about what happens if we don't have more women in STEM, whether that be young women coming in or school leavers choosing these kinds of careers or even transitioning. Like, what do you think that means for us?
yeah, it's a great question, Em. And yeah, diversity has been my theme for a while. Maybe I've been banging on about it probably 25, 30 years, 25 years now. And yeah, certainly diversity for me started off with girls and women, but has since grown much broader than that as my understanding has grown. Okay, so I think maybe a story of what's kind of driven me all this time really might be helpful. Okay, so do you remember okay, you probably don't know the story, but when we first had smartphones, about a third of the video,
Young.
right, 1,000 years ago now it feels, but when we first had smartphones, I know, right, we're talking like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And so a third of the videos that were recorded with smartphones were upside down. Do you know that? And do you know why? You know this? No? Any thoughts
don't
on
know
why? Aha. It's because a third of people are left-handed. And there literally wasn't anyone with a left-handed on the team to realize that if you take a video, it's actually going to be upside down for left-handers. I know, right? It's so basic.
Because you're going to be turning it the other.
Yeah. So a third of videos that were uploaded to YouTube in the early days were actually upside down. And I think it's an
That's
excellent
why.
example. I love that I've stopped you there because that's awesome. Because I think that of diversity and beyond gender as well, and why we need people of all sorts of diversity at the table. There's so many examples. These kinds of stories have driven me in my career, and in terms of systems to manage CVs, for instance, for big corporates. So CVs would come in and go through a system to check if you get to the next level. Systems, AI systems, which we've had for a very long time, were generally written by men, middle-aged white men, dare I say, and therefore they would look for words that middle-aged white men would use on their resumes. And so women would just automatically get pushed through and miss out on opportunities because of this filtering system. We talk about AI, and I'm sure you know this, but I studied AI back in 1997. Like, it's not a new thing, but Gen AI obviously is quite new. But AI has been built in, and the bias built into AI is something that's always motivated me. And so there are so many examples of airbags, for instance. Airbags, until quite recently, actually disproportionately killed women and children, particularly pregnant women, because they were never tested. They were tested on the default white man. And again, that's not a negative slur, it's just the case. And so I think having all sorts of brains at the table so we avoid groupthink, having different peoples and bodies at the table, romance scams disproportionately target older people, right? Older, lonely people. Immigration fraud targets people afraid to report, that they don't have the papers, they don't have things. There are certainly groups that are targeted because those people are not at the table in building that technology. So I think the more of those people, we need older people, we need younger people. And this is why I love hearing from younger people and go, how do you see the world? What do you see it looking like? And it just blows your mind to get their perspective, because they haven't had it all beaten out of them yet. They're still at school. They're like, oh no, they haven't been told that many times that you can't do that, you can't do that. So they can do it and they try it, particularly youngers, like from sort of 8 to 11. It's phenomenal, the ideas they come up with. They're like, yeah, I can do this. I don't know any of that stuff that says I can't. I'm going to do this. And so hearing what they want to bring to the world and how they see the future. And I think a really great example is something like, I think it was Kids Helpline, and they were trying to redesign or reconfigure their help service for kids. And what they realized after actually interviewing people, funnily enough, that kids between 5 and maybe 9 actually don't have access to a telephone on their own. They literally don't have anywhere they can go and use a telephone on their own. But yet, if they're in trouble, call us. Where are they going to call from? Their parents' phone? From where? There's no public phones.
A landline? My kids don't know what a landline is.
So yes, we have this service to help young people in need, but they have no way to access it through what was positioned as this is how you access us. And so that in itself is like, wow, we are not really thinking about what different cohorts need. We need them at the table. We need to hear their views. We need them to be part of these conversations. Absolutely. Like all diversity in every form.
That's amazing amount of information. I agree with kids. It's that they can take things literally. Stand on the cone. They go, actually stand on the cone. No, I meant it's okay. You know what? Stand behind the cone. One. And we've said this for even Susan McLean, like sometimes you get a 9-year-old kid who's way smarter mentally than a 19-year-old kid, because they're not going to do the same stupid thing that the 19-year-old. You're sitting there thinking you're supposed to be an adult. I don't think so.
I'd say it's 39 or 69-year-old and I'd keep going with that, but yes.
Yeah, it's the vulnerabilities that can be discovered by asking the actual people you're trying to serve is pretty amazing, isn't it?
100%. And one of my favorite examples is I had a team of girls from the Central Coast, New South Wales. They were all homeschooled. I think there were 8 in the family. They had varying levels of disabilities. They were in the Tech Girls program for, I think it was 8 years. So 8 years, they came back and back and back. And it was a team of siblings, all girls. And every year they'd come back with a different problem to solve. And they were homeschooled. And what I loved about them was from that homeschool perspective of, we all think we know what homeschool is. We have no idea, actually. Well, I had no idea. And just the depth of understanding and breadth of problems they were trying to solve was honestly phenomenal. But the fact that one of them was actually nominated for New South Wales Young Australian of the Year when she was 16, just because of the innovations she had created and so on, which were just, this is why we need them all. We need all of them. We need to hear from all of them.
Love that. Maybe we should have taken that approach with the social media ban. But anyway, that's a topic for a whole topic.
That would have been helpful. Actually, a couple of my students who were homeschooled from that team are on the E-Safety Commissioner's advisory board, so which I love.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing. So there should be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Jenine, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate all the work that you do for the whole industry, and what you provide helps everyone. It's not about gender per se, but the fact that you bring in such amazing technology and you bring girls in and make them heroes, and children for that matter, and make them want to lead hopefully in the right direction. I personally want to say thank you for that. And please send the STEM kit. I'll send you the address. I'm dying to play with your STEM kit. Emily and I are going to put it together and we're going to play. How do people get in contact with you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, thanks so much, bro. Those very kind words. I really appreciate that. And I think really it's about inclusiveness around we've all got a place in STEM and let's find our place and where we can contribute. So I love that. And I very much believe that. And you said that I make them heroes. Actually, they're heroes already. I just help them shine. So, yeah, I'm happy responsible for that. I guess what I do is I help people find their potential. And that includes young people, includes corporates, includes women, includes everyone in the middle. But yeah, my website, JanineBeekhuyzen.com. Google me. I'm the only person in the world with my name. It's unique, which is good and bad. It means I have to behave myself, but no, I am unique. You can find me LinkedIn, socials. But yeah, just trying to get some positivity in the world. The world's a little bit crazy as always, but yeah, people care. People are great. People want to do the right thing. And in the cyberspace, like we all want to do the right thing. So how do we provide the landscape for people to be their best selves?
I just love every time I get to chat with you, Janine. It just makes my whole week. You
We
too,
need
Bora.
more of that,
But
Edmund.
we need so more of this. You do so much incredible stuff, and we only just skimmed the very top of some incredible conversations we've had in the past. So, but thank you so much for coming and chatting with us. It's been amazing.
I love that.
Love
But
it.
you know, I can
Thank
only
you.
do what I do because of people like you. So it's about community. It's about networks. It's about lifting each other up. It's about being there and cheering each other on. And that's the only way that this works.
Agreed.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks.